Welcome to Star Wars Timeline. In today's video, I'm highlighting one of my favorite Legends characters, Mara Jade. In my previous video, I had a fun little project where I created a custom 6-inch figure of Mara, so I decided to go with the flow and talk about her character in this one. We'll quickly go over her background story, check out her abilities, personality traits, Jedi powers, and also discuss my hopes for the future of this character. So let's jump right into it. Mara Jade was originally introduced in Timothy Zahn's original Thrawn Trilogy, the first book, which is called The Heir to the Empire, released in 1991. And there we learned that Mara Jade was raised as the Emperor's servant and personal assassin. She was the one to oversee that the gears of the Imperial machine run well and to root out any non-conforming Imperials or corrupt politicians and so forth. We also understand that she was specifically indoctrinated by Emperor Palpatine and taught to hate and to destroy Luke Skywalker. She obviously possessed some Jedi powers, and that's what the Emperor cultivated in her. But at the end of the film, The Return of the Jedi, when the Vader and the Emperor is defeated, the Emperor sends this telepathic message to Mara Jade saying that your last command is to destroy Luke Skywalker. So in the Thrawn Trilogy, we learn that Mara Jade she escapes the Empire, but she's still haunted by the Emperor's last moments and his command. And this compulsion is in her subconscious psyche to say and go out and find and kill Luke Skywalker. But we eventually learned that when she encounters Luke for the first time, even though they're being confrontational and so to speak in opposite sides, she learns to respect Luke's abilities and his character, because there's some of the qualities that, which we'll talk later about in her personality traits, she possesses same as Luke: devotion, loyalty to friends, and their own sense of justice as well. So throughout the original Thrawn Trilogy, we see Mara's first interaction with Luke Skywalker, how she grows to admire and respect his abilities and his personality traits, some of which she also shares, like loyalty to friends and their own selves sense of justice. And throughout that book trilogy, we'll learn that they learn to work together and eventually defeat the evil. And Mara Jade kind of like moves past the point where she was being controlled by the Emperor's specter, and she joins Luke Skywalker and Yavin 4, continuing her training, and later on becoming one of the major expanded universe characters in the Star Wars lore. We also discovered that after this original trilogy, in consequent books, Luke's and Mara's relationship blooms into something very special, and eventually, they get married and produce offspring as well. And also interesting, the last chapters of Mara's lifespan is that something happens to the Jedi twins, Han and Leia's Jacen and Jaina. When something happens to Jacen Solo, she's the one who is willing to go out and you go after Jacen, resolve the situation. Now, let's move on and talk about her personality and powers. From the beginning, when we first introduced to the character, we understand that Mara is extremely proud and loyal woman. She's very disciplined, she's very collected, and she possesses a cunning and intelligent mind. She has considerable force powers from early childhood, and those were the reasons that the Emperor handpicked her and groomed her to be his personal assistant, next to Vader. We also understand that she's highly efficient in rooting out corrupt politicians, and after the Emperor's fall, she's unwilling to follow all these warlords who want to proclaim themselves to be the next Emperor because she considers them beneath her. After the Empire's fall, Mara is finally free of the Emperor's last command of his mental control over her, and she begins to grow as a character. And we also begin to understand that family comes first to her. She's very loyal to the people and friends that she loves. For example, that she finds loyalty in Talon Carter, the smuggler who is introduced also in the first Timothy Zahn's Thrawn Trilogy, and she finds friendship in him. Later on, when she confronts Luke and she learns to admire his character traits, she also becomes loyal to him as well and joins him when Yavin 4 and the rest of the team, like Han and Leia and so forth. We also understand that under that tough exterior, she has a very warm and compassionate personality and a sense of individual justice. And it's illustrated at one point where she lets a rogue stormtrooper unit called the Hand of Judgment escape, and survive and escape, because she finds that they're good men and they're following their own hearts, and what they were doing is right and just. So she sort of lets them go. She listens to her own instincts. Now let's take a look at Mara's skill set. From the beginning, we learn that under the Emperor's tutelage, Mara excelled at infiltration and disguise. She's a very skilled slicer. She's also a great mechanic and a great pilot. At one point, we see her pilot the Z-95 Headhunter. She also has her personal ship, Jade's Fire, and later on, when her relationship with Luke Skywalker blooms, he builds her another ship called Jade's Shadow, all of which she's able to pilot with great skill. During the Yuzhang Vong War, she also distinguished herself as a second in command of the Black Moon Squadron, once again demonstrating her abilities as a pilot. We also know that Mara is an accomplished lightsaber duelist, and she was able, with Luke's support, to defeat his evil twin at the end of the Thrawn Trilogy. During the Vong War, she was also able to defeat the Yeoman Kar, who was like one of the infiltrators and spy for these intergalactic invaders. And the battle between the two was very vicious and unexpected, because the Vong wielded biotechnology which allowed them to kind of like push out the force surrounding them, so the Jedi weren't able to track their moves or predict their fighting abilities. And once again, Yeoman Kar was a very, very skilled, admirable opponent, but Mara was able to defeat him. Also, during the Vong War, Mara was diseased with this illness, which specifically targeted her, as a Jedi. And we slowly learned as her health is like detrimenting and falling down, but she was still able to use the Force to hold this illness at bay until they find a cure. And also, she was pregnant at the time with a young Ben Skywalker in her womb, so she was able to stave off the illness with her Force powers, which I thought was quite fascinating. So what was my impression of Mara Jade when I first encountered her? I must have read the original Thrawn Trilogy in late 90s, maybe early 2000s, like 2001 or something like that. I honestly don't remember. But what first grabbed me about Mara was a combination of things. First, it was her checkered past, that she was the Emperor's hand, that she started off as a sort of villain or an anti-hero, but she still possessed very strong and defined personality traits and her own sense of judgment. In other words, she wasn't just the Emperor's another pawn. She acted on her own will, and when it was time to ditch the Empire and forget the Emperor's last command, she had the will and strength to do that. Also, it was another part of it was her appearance and how she first encounters Luke, and she sees the enemy in him, but then they were able to interact, and she starts showing an admiration and even liking him by calling him this funny nickname, the Farm Boy. Also, her appearance, of course, that striking raven hair, and she's described as this beautiful young woman who is also very capable. If we were to speak in Dungeons and Dragons terms, you know how you have like lawful good and then chaotic good. She was almost like a chaotic good character. I knew from the beginning that she would become something very special, even though at the time I didn't read any other Star Wars books, and I honestly didn't know where it would lead. But you could tell that something is going to happen, and then she would turn, the sides, and she would become the good person. But it was done so naturally, and it was a considerable time before she eases into Luke's character, and she is able to let go of her past and hatred and stuff like that. It's very layered. She's a very complex character with different emotional things, pulling at her from inside, and how she learns to, live with her existence past the Empire was quite interesting to me. Also, it was fun to see that she was this empowered female character, and honestly, Luke's equal and opposite. And she was very self-reliant and strong-willed, and it was not very heavy-handed, like, it wasn't made a big deal that she's a woman, but she's powerful. No, you embraced her for who she was, not the fact that she was a female with a lightsaber. And I really, really enjoyed it, and I thought this was the right way to go about it. And that's how new characters should be introduced in Star Wars canon, by the merit of their story and character, not what they are, they're female or a person who represents a minority or, LGBT group, whatever that is. Their stories should speak first, And that was the beautiful thing about Mara. I embraced her character first, and the fact that she was a beautiful female second. You know, that was a secondary thing to me. As I mentioned before, the banter between her and Luke was pretty interesting. The farm boy and different things they throw at each other. So she was like very quick-witted and sharp-tongued, and I really enjoyed that. And to talk about past the Thrawn Trilogy, it was really fun to see how her character evolves. How she slowly says like, okay, yeah, maybe I should train with Luke. You know, maybe I should go. And time passes before Luke and Mara both realize that, oh, you know, wow, they're falling for each other. There are things that happen between them. There's some distance, and you know, there's Lando Calrissian gets in the way a little bit, being a swaggering charmer that he is. All of that stuff, you know, all her story, or her abilities, her presence, her looks, all a combination of things were so tightly woven that, you know, I enjoyed the character a lot. For the last, I would talk about what are my hopes for the future of Mara Jade. Obviously, we have the new existing canon, with the sequel movies and the show and so forth. But I don't see a reason why she can't appear in some capacity. You know, it could be a TV show, or it could be a video game format, which video games are as big as movies right now. And just like the Jedi Fallen Order has proven, they're able to tell very powerful and emotional scenes equal to a movie experience. Even could be a comic book format. And to be frank with you guys, as much as I enjoyed her union with Luke Skywalker, it's not necessary for me. Yes, it's a big part of who she was, but it's not an absolute must or requirement. She could just come back and be there, maybe have some kind of fling with Luke Skywalker, but it would be interesting to follow the story, how she was the Emperor's hand. You know, she started on one side of this war and kind of like switched gears and became a prominent Jedi. That would be interesting to see. And I think even in regards to the sequel trilogy, we understand that between episode 6 and episode 7, 30 years pass. And in that time, there's a lot of potential for storytelling. Who knows, maybe Luke did experience and go through this whole family experience, having or not having kids. You know, a woman, she finds a woman, the love of his life, and then something tragic happens and they part ways. And even the past episode 9, you know, what is the potential of other force wielders being there? I would love all of it to be explored, and for Mara Jade not to be discarded, because she's honestly one of the most popular expanded universe characters. Anyway, that's it for my character highlight. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy character highlights, book reviews, comics, and so forth, feel free to subscribe, hit that bell button. Let me know in the comments below how you first encountered Mara Jade Skywalker and what are your favorite things about her. And I will see you next time.